The September rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the corner office on the 42nd floor of the Valentino Enterprises building in Midtown Manhattan. Marco Valentino stood with his back to the room, hands clasped behind his perfectly tailored charcoal suit, watching the city lights blur through the downpour. At 38 years old, he commanded an empire that stretched from legitimate real estate holdings to less legitimate operations that polite society pretended not to notice. Behind him, 3 men sat in leather chairs around a glass conference table waiting. They knew better than to speak first. "The shipment arrives Tuesday," Marco said without turning around, his voice calm and measured. "Vincent, you'll handle the warehouse inspection personally. No substitutions this time. Last month's complications cost us $200,000 in 3 relationships I spent years building." "Understood, boss," Vincent replied, a stocky man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair. Marco turned to face them, his dark eyes scanning each man with the kind of attention that made people either very honest or very nervous. He had his father's sharp Italian features, strong jaw, prominent nose, olive skin, softened slightly by his mother's side of the family. His black hair was cut short and professional, with just enough gray at the temples to add gravitas. Antonio, the construction permits for the Brooklyn project. His phone vibrated on the desk. Marco glanced at the screen and his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The name Mama glowed in the darkness. "We're done here," he said. "Vincent, send me the final numbers by midnight. Everyone out." The men filed out quickly, recognizing dismissal when they heard it. Marco waited until the heavy door clicked shut before answering on the 5th ring. "Mama." "Marco, finalmente." His mother's voice came through in rapid Italian, switching between English and her native tongue the way she always did when agitated. "I've been calling you all day. Have you been avoiding your mother?" "I've been working, Mama. What do you need?" "What do I need?" Lucia Valentino's voice rose an octave. "Your brother's wedding is in 2 weeks, Marco, and you still haven't told me if you're bringing someone. Please tell me you're not coming alone again. Please tell me my oldest son won't embarrass me in front of the Castellanos and the Russos." "I'll be there, Mama." "That's not what I asked. Are you bringing a woman or not?" "Angela Russo's daughter is still available. Bellissimo, smart, from a good family." "I'm not interested in Angela Russo's daughter." "Then who? That lawyer? The one with the short hair who looks at you like you're a piece of meat she wants to devour?" Marco pinched the bridge of his nose. "Her name is Patricia. And no, we stopped seeing each other 3 months ago." 3 months and you didn't tell me. What about Sophia's friend, the one from the charity gala?" "Mama, basta. Enough." He walked back to the window, his free hand pressed against the cold glass. "I'll bring someone. You have my word." There was a suspicious pause. "You'll bring someone? Who is she? Why haven't you mentioned her?" "Because it's new, very new." "How new?" "What's her name?" "What family is she from?" "You'll meet her at the wedding." "Marco Giuseppe Valentino, don't you dare." "I have to go, Mama. I love you. I'll see you in 2 weeks." He ended the call before she could protest further, knowing she'd call back within the hour. She always did. Marco set the phone down and stared at his reflection in the dark window. The rain continued its assault on the glass, each drop a small explosion of water that blurred the city beyond. 2 weeks. He had 2 weeks to find a date to his brother's wedding, or face the endless parade of suitable women his mother had been throwing at him since his divorce 5 years ago. Women from connected families. Women who understood the life. Women who looked at him and saw not a man, but an opportunity, a position, a power to align themselves with. He was tired, bone-deep tired of the game. 3 days later, 11:47 p.m., the fluorescent lights of Lucky's Diner in Queens flickered with that particular hum that seemed to exist only in 24-hour establishments that had seen better decades. Marco pushed through the glass door, the little bell above it announcing his arrival to exactly 5 other patrons. 2 truck drivers nursing coffee at the counter, a young couple in a corner booth speaking in hushed Spanish, and an elderly man working on a crossword puzzle. This was his 3rd visit to this particular diner in as many nights. He chose the same booth by the window, the red vinyl cracked and patched with duct tape. Outside, Queens never truly slept. Traffic lights changed for no one. Sirens wailed in the distance and the subway rumbled beneath the street every 12 minutes. "Coffee black, right?" Marco looked up. Emma Chen stood beside his table with a pot of coffee in one hand and a menu in the other, though they both knew he wouldn't need it. She wore the diner's standard uniform, a pale blue dress with white collar and cuffs, protected by a white apron that had seen one too many washing cycles. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and despite the late hour, her brown eyes were alert and focused. "You remember," Marco said. "You've been here 3 nights in a row. Same booth, same time, same order. Kind of hard to forget." She poured the coffee with the practiced ease of someone who'd done this thousands of times. "Grilled cheese and fries tonight, or are you feeling adventurous?" There was no flirtation in her tone, no recognition of who he was or what he represented. In a city where his name carried weight and whispers, her complete lack of pretense was jarring. Refreshing. "Grilled cheese is fine," he said. "You work every night?" Emma shrugged, tucking the notepad into her apron pocket. "Someone's got to pay the bills. Plus night shift pays better, and Lou lets me take double shifts when I need them. That's a lot of hours. That's life." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Be right back with your food." Marco watched her walk away, stopping to refill the truck driver's cups and joke with the cook through the service window. She moved with efficiency born of necessity, every gesture economical, wasting neither time nor energy. There was something honest about her, something real in a world where Marco was surrounded by people who calculated every word, every smile, every gesture for maximum advantage. The grilled cheese arrived 12 minutes later, perfectly golden, accompanied by fries that were crispy on the outside and soft inside. Emma set the plate down along with ketchup and hot sauce without being asked. "You're good at this," Marco observed. 8 years of practice. You learn to read people. Who wants conversation, who wants to be left alone, who's going to tip, and who's going to leave religious pamphlets instead. She refilled his coffee. "You're the leave alone type, but you keep coming back, so either our coffee is amazing or you've got something on your mind." "Maybe both." She laughed, a genuine sound that seemed out of place in the tired diner. "Our coffee is terrible. It's been the same pot since 6 p.m., so it must be the something on your mind." Before Marco could respond, the bell above the door chimed. Emma's expression shifted subtly, her shoulders tensing. 3 young men in hoodies walked in, loud and aggressive in the way that signaled trouble. They took a booth across the diner, and one of them immediately started banging on the table. "Yo, service, we ain't got all night." Emma's jaw tightened, but she grabbed menus. "Excuse me," she said to Marco, her voice carefully neutral. He watched as she approached their table, professional smile fixed in place. The interaction was brief but tense, raised voices, crude comments that made the elderly man with the crossword puzzle look up nervously. Emma handled it with practiced calm, taking their order and retreating to the kitchen. When she returned to refill Marco's coffee 20 minutes later, he noticed her hands were shaking slightly. "You okay?" "Fine. Just, some customers are more challenging than others." She set the pot down. "Part of the job. They bother you often?" Emma met his eyes, and for the first time he saw a flicker of something. Wariness, maybe, or curiosity about why he was asking. "You ask a lot of questions for someone who wants to be left alone. Maybe I'm reconsidering my type." She studied him for a long moment. This well-dressed man who appeared in her diner after midnight 3 nights running, drinking terrible coffee and asking questions that felt like they meant something more. In her 8 years of waitressing, Emma had developed a sixth sense about people. This man was different. Expensive suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Careful posture. Eyes that didn't miss anything. Not a businessman. Not exactly. But not dangerous to her either. At least she didn't think so. "I get off at 6 a.m., she said quietly. "If you're going to keep showing up, you should at least tell me why." "Fair enough." Marco pulled out his wallet and left $200 bills on the table. 10 times what his meal cost. "Tomorrow night. Same time. And Emma?" She looked at him, surprised he knew her name, though it was embroidered on her uniform. "Those guys bother you again, you let me know." Before she could respond, he was gone, the bell chiming his exit. Emma picked up the bills, her heart racing. She looked through the window, watching his dark figure climb into a black SUV that absolutely did not belong in this neighborhood. The vehicle pulled away smoothly, expensive and anonymous. Who was that? Lou, the night cook, asked from the service window. He was 65, had owned this diner for 30 years, and had seen everything Queens had to offer. "I have no idea," Emma said honestly, "but I think I'm about to find out." The next night, 11:52 p.m., Marco was already in the booth when Emma's shift started. This time he'd brought a newspaper, though she noticed he wasn't actually reading it. She poured his coffee without asking. "You're early," she said. "Wanted to make sure I got the good booth." Emma smiled despite herself. They're all the same booth, same cracked vinyl, same wobbly tables. But this one has the best view. Of the parking lot? Of the diner? I can see everything from here. He folded the newspaper. Sit down for a minute. Emma glanced at Lou, who nodded. The diner was quiet. Just two other customers, both regulars who wouldn't need anything for a while. She slid into the booth across from Marco, feeling strangely nervous. I'm going to ask you something unusual, Marco began, his hands wrapped around the coffee cup. And I need you to hear me out before you say no. That's a concerning way to start a conversation. I need a date to my brother's wedding. Emma blinked. Of all the things she'd imagined he might say, that wasn't one of them. What? 2 weeks from now. Saturday. In the Hamptons. My family is... He paused, choosing his words carefully. Traditional. My mother has been pressuring me to bring someone. If I show up alone again, she'll spend the entire weekend trying to set me up with daughters of her friends. I can't do another weekend like that. So ask someone. You seem like the type who knows plenty of women. I do. But they all want something. A relationship. Access. And into my world. I need someone who doesn't. Emma leaned back, her arms crossed. And you think that's me? You don't know anything about me. I know you work double shifts to pay bills. I know you handle difficult customers with grace. I know you're genuine. You don't pretend to be something you're not. And I know you could probably use the money I'm willing to pay for 1 weekend of your time. How much money? $10,000. Cash, for 1 weekend. Friday night through Sunday morning. You'd be my date to the wedding, meet my family, smile, make conversation. Nothing more. Separate rooms. No expectations beyond the public appearance. Emma's mind raced. $10,000. That was 6 months of rent. That was half of what her little sister Amy's neck surgery would cost. The one their insurance was fighting them over. That was breathing room, safety, hope. Why me? She asked quietly. Marco considered the question. Because you're real. Because you don't know who I am or what my family does. Because when you look at me, you see a customer who tips well, not an opportunity. And because, he hesitated. Because I think I can trust you not to make this complicated. You don't know if you can trust me. We've had 3 conversations. 4 if you count this one, and you're right, I'm taking a chance. But my instincts about people are usually good. It's how I've stayed alive in my line of work. There it was. The acknowledgement that his line of work was something other than ordinary. Emma wasn't naive. The expensive suit, the SUV, the way he carried himself with that particular combination of confidence and watchfulness. She'd seen enough crime dramas to recognize the archetype. But sitting across from him in the harsh fluorescent light of Lucky's diner, he didn't seem dangerous. Tired, maybe. Lonely. Definitely. I need to think about it, she said. Fair. But I need an answer by tomorrow night. The wedding is in 13 days. Emma stood up, her mind already spinning with questions, concerns, and the tantalizing possibility of solving problems that had kept her awake for months. Same time tomorrow? I'll be here. She walked away to check on her other customers, but her hands were shaking again. This time, not from fear. The following night, 11:58 p.m. Emma was waiting when Marco arrived. She'd spent the last 24 hours thinking, researching, and talking herself in and out of this insane proposition. She'd looked up Valentino and New York on her phone during her break and found plenty. Real estate holdings, charity galas, society page mentions, and between the lines, if you knew where to look, whispers of other things. Connections, influence, the kind of power that didn't come from boardrooms alone. She'd also thought about Amy's medical bills, about their tiny apartment in Astoria, about their mother working 3 jobs in Shanghai to send money that never seemed to be enough, about opportunities that never came to people like her, people who worked hard, played by the rules, and still barely scraped by. $10,000 could change everything. I have conditions, Emma said, as soon as Marco sat down. He nodded, unsurprised. I'm listening. First, you tell me exactly what I'm walking into, who your family is, what they do, what I need to know to not make a fool of myself or put myself in danger. Agreed. Second, separate rooms, like you said. And I'm not wearing anything I'm not comfortable in. I don't care what your family expects. I'm not pretending to be someone I'm not. That's the point. I don't want you to pretend. Third, half the money up front, half when the weekend is over. And I want it in writing. A contract or agreement or whatever makes this official. Marco smiled slightly. You've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about what $10,000 means to me. It's not a game. It's my sister's surgery. It's security, She paused. emotion threatening to crack her careful composure. It's Hope. So, yes, I've been thinking about it very carefully. Your sister's sick? Emma looked away, out at the parking lot. A taxi pulled in, passengers climbing out for late-night pie. She has a heart condition, congenital. The surgery isn't immediately life-threatening, so our insurance is dragging their feet on coverage. We're trying to raise the money ourselves, but it's like trying to empty the ocean with a bucket. When she looked back at Marco, his expression had softened in a way that made him seem younger, more human. I'll give you 12,000, he said. 10 for the weekend, 2 for your sister's surgery, no strings. Even if you change your mind after Friday night, the money for your sister is yours regardless. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Why would you do that? Because I understand what it's like to feel helpless when someone you love is suffering, and because $12,000 is nothing to me, but clearly everything to you. It's a small thing I can do that actually matters. They sat in silence for a moment, the diner's ambient noise filling the space, the hiss of the grill, the murmur of other conversations, the clink of dishes. Okay, Emma said finally. I'll do it, but I need to know what I'm getting into. Tell me about your family. The truth. Marco leaned forward, his voice low enough that it wouldn't carry beyond their booth. My last name is Valentino. In certain circles, that means something. My family has been in New York for 4 generations. We own legitimate businesses, real estate, construction, restaurants. We also have other interests, things I won't involve you in, things you don't need to know about. But you should understand that my family operates by different rules than most. You mean they're connected? Organized crime. He didn't flinch. That's a simplification, but yes. My father semi-retired 5 years ago. I run the businesses now, both legal and less legal. My younger brother, Antonio, the groom, he's stayed mostly on the legitimate side. He's marrying a woman from another old Italian family. The wedding will be big, traditional, full of people who will judge you, question you, and probably assume the worst about why you're with me. Because I'm not Italian? Not from your world? Both. And because my family has been trying to marry me off to someone appropriate for years. You showing up, a Chinese-American waitress from Queens, will be shocking to them. Some will be rude. Some will be condescending. My mother will probably interrogate you. Can you handle that? Emma thought about the drunk customers who'd grabbed her, the ones who'd left crude notes instead of tips, the manager at her last job who'd fired her for refusing his advances. She'd handled worse than judgmental rich people. I can handle it, but you need to prepare me. Names, relationships, things I should or shouldn't say. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. We'll meet before the wedding. I'll brief you on everyone who matters. We'll get our story straight. Marco pulled out his phone. Give me your number. I'll have my lawyer draw up a simple contract. Nothing that would hold up in court. This isn't exactly a conventional arrangement, but something that makes you feel secure. Emma recited her number and heard his phone chime as he saved it. The reality of what she was agreeing to suddenly hit her. She was going to spend a weekend with a stranger, a powerful, possibly dangerous stranger, in a world she knew nothing about. You look scared, Marco observed. I am scared. This is insane. You're basically asking me to infiltrate your family for money. That's either the plot of a romantic comedy or a crime thriller, and I'm not sure which. Maybe both. He stood up, leaving cash on the table for coffee he hadn't drunk. Emma, I give you my word. You'll be safe. No one in my family will touch you or threaten you. You're under my protection, which means something in my world. And if at any point you want out, you say the word and I'll have you home within the hour. The money for your sister's surgery is yours either way. Why are you being so nice about this? You could demand more for your money. Marco paused at the edge of the booth, looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Because despite what you might think, I'm not a monster. I'm just a man who's tired of being alone and tired of people who want to use him. You're helping me. The least I can do is make sure you're treated with respect. After he left, Emma sat in the booth for another 10 minutes, staring at the cash on the table. Lou came over with the coffee pot. That man friend or trouble? He asked in his gravelly voice. I honestly don't know, Emma admitted. Maybe both. In my experience, those are usually the most interesting ones. Lou refilled her cup even though she hadn't asked. Just be careful, kid. Men in expensive suits who show up at diners after midnight. They've always got complicated lives. Don't I know it? Emma murmured. But when she clocked out at 6 a.m., walking out into the gray dawn of Queens with the promise of $12,000 ringing in her ears, She felt something she hadn't felt in months. Possibility. Emma met Marco at a small cafe in the West Village, neutral territory away from his office and her diner. He'd sent a car for her. Not the intimidating black SUV, but a regular sedan with a polite driver who said nothing beyond confirming her identity. The cafe was the kind of place that served $7 coffee and had mismatched vintage furniture that was somehow both uncomfortable and charming. Marco was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee and a folder. "You came," he said, standing as she approached. "I gave my word." Emma sat down, accepting the coffee. "Plus, you already paid me the first half. $6,000 showed up in my account 3 days ago. My sister's surgery is scheduled for next month." Something like genuine pleasure crossed Marco's face. "Good. That's good." He pushed the folder across the table. Inside were photos, brief bios, and a family tree that looked more complicated than a university org chart. "This is everyone who will be at the wedding. We need to get you up to speed on who's who, our cover story, and how to navigate the weekend without raising red flags." For the next 2 hours, Marco walked her through the Valentino family dynamics. His mother, Lucia, matriarch and master manipulator, who communicated love through criticism and control. His father, Salvatore, the retired boss who still wielded considerable influence through silence and observation. Antonio, the golden child who'd managed to stay mostly legitimate. Cousins, uncles, aunts, and associates. A dizzying array of relationships built on blood, marriage, and mutual benefit. "We met 6 weeks ago," Marco explained their cover story, "at a charity event I attended. You were there with friends. We got to talking, exchanged numbers, and have been seeing each other casually since then. Nothing serious yet, but enough that I wanted you to meet my family." "What charity event?" "The Metropolitan Museum Gala. You won tickets through your work." "I'm a waitress at a 24-hour diner. How would I win tickets to a gala?" Marco smiled. "Lou entered all his staff in some radio contest. You won. It's plausible enough if anyone digs." Emma shook her head, impressed despite herself. "You've really thought this through." "I've had to think everything through my entire life. It's how you survive in my world." As the afternoon faded to evening, their conversation drifted from logistics to more personal territory. Marco talked about the weight of expectations, the loneliness of leadership, the exhaustion of maintaining a facade even with family. Emma shared stories about growing up in 2 cultures, the pressure to succeed for a family that had sacrificed everything to come to America, the guilt of never feeling like enough. "We're not that different," Emma observed. "Different worlds, same cages. Maybe that's why this arrangement might actually work. We both understand what it's like to pretend." As they prepared to leave, Emma's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her face fell. "Bad news? My landlord rent's going up next month. Again." She laughed bitterly. "Even with the money from this weekend, I'll be back to square one in a few months. That's the thing about poverty. You can never quite escape it. You just buy yourself a little more time." Marco was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "What if I could offer you something more permanent?" "What do you mean?" "After the wedding, assuming it goes well, I could use someone in my life who isn't connected to my work. Someone real. We could continue this. The appearance of dating, public events, family gatherings. I'd pay you a monthly retainer. Nothing that would change your life completely, but enough that you wouldn't have to work double shifts. Enough that you could breathe." Emma stared at him. "You're proposing a fake relationship, long-term? Is it really fake if we're honest about what it is? I need someone in my life who doesn't want anything from me except what we've agreed to. You need financial stability. It could be mutually beneficial." "That's," Emma struggled for words, "that's basically Pretty Woman without the sex work. If you want to look at it that way. I prefer to think of it as a business arrangement between 2 people who understand each other." Emma stood up, suddenly needing distance. This had started as a one-weekend deal, a desperate grab at money she needed for her sister. Now it was morphing into something else entirely. "Let's get through this weekend first," she said finally. "Then we can talk about anything else." "Fair enough." Marco stood as well, pulling on his jacket. "The car will pick you up tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pack for 3 days. Bring whatever makes you comfortable. We'll drive to the Hamptons together. It'll give us time to finalize details." "Marco." Emma caught his arm as he turned to leave. "Why are you really doing this? And don't tell me it's just about your mother's nagging. There's something else." He looked at her for a long moment, and she saw something vulnerable flicker behind his careful control. "Because I'm tired of being what everyone expects me to be," he said quietly. "For one weekend, I want to be just a man with a date to his brother's wedding. Not a boss, not a son with obligations, not a legacy, just me. And I think you're the only person who might actually see me that way. Before Emma could respond, he was gone, leaving her standing in the cafe with a folder full of strangers' faces and a decision that felt like it might change everything. Friday, 4 p.m. The black SUV pulled up in front of Emma's apartment building in Astoria right on time. Emma stood on the sidewalk with a small rolling suitcase and a growing sense of unreality. She'd packed her best clothes, which amounted to 3 dresses that weren't fancy but were clean and presentable, comfortable shoes, and basic toiletries. She had no idea if any of it would be appropriate for a Hamptons wedding, but it was all she had. Marco stepped out of the vehicle, and Emma's breath caught. She'd only ever seen him in the dim light of the diner or the cafe. In the late afternoon sunshine, he was striking. The sharp lines of his face, the intensity of his dark eyes, the way his casual navy blazer and dark jeans somehow looked more expensive than most people's formal wear. "Ready?" he asked, taking her suitcase. "As I'll ever be." The driver, introduced simply as Tony, loaded her bag into the trunk. The interior of the SUV was exactly as intimidating as Emma had imagined. Black leather, tinted windows, the faint scent of expensive cologne and power. As they pulled into traffic, heading toward the Long Island Expressway, Emma felt her heart rate accelerate. This was it. She was actually doing this. "You okay?" Marco asked, noticing her white knuckles on the door handle. "Terrified," Emma admitted. "What if I mess this up? What if I say the wrong thing or use the wrong fork or—" "Emma," he placed his hand over hers, the gesture surprisingly gentle. "You're going to be fine. Just be yourself. That's all I'm asking. Myself is a waitress from Queens who's never been to the Hamptons and thinks Olive Garden is fancy dining." Marco laughed, a real laugh that transformed his entire face. "Then we're going to have an interesting weekend. But honestly, my family could use a dose of reality. They've been living in their bubble so long they've forgotten what the real world looks like." As the city gave way to suburbs and then to the manicured landscapes of Long Island's East End, Marco continued Emma's education in Valentino family politics. He pointed out potential allies, his niece Sophia, his aunt Teresa, who'd married into the family and never quite fit in. He warned her about the difficult ones, cousin Luca, who resented Marco's leadership, Uncle Dominic, who thought women should be seen and not heard. "And your parents?" Emma asked. "How should I act around them?" "With my father, be respectful but not obsequious. He respects people who have spines. With my mother," Marco sighed, "just survive her. That's all anyone can do." The sun was setting as they turned onto a private road lined with old trees. At the end of the road, a sprawling estate came into view. White columns, manicured lawns, guest houses dotting the property like luxury afterthoughts. Emma's stomach dropped. "This is where we're staying?" "Welcome to the Valentino family compound," Marco said with a dry smile. "Try not to let it intimidate you. It's just a house. A very large, very expensive house that my grandfather built to prove he'd made it in America." The SUV stopped in front of the main house. Before Emma could process what was happening, the front doors opened and people poured out. Family members eager to greet the returning son, curious about who he'd brought with him. Emma took a deep breath. This was it. The arrangement was about to become very real. Marco stepped out first, then offered his hand to help her down. As her feet touched the gravel driveway, every pair of eyes locked onto her. She heard the whispers start immediately. Surprised murmurs in Italian, shocked English exclamations. "Everyone," Marco said, his hand resting protectively on the small of Emma's back. "This is Emma Chen. Emma, welcome to the family chaos." A woman in her 60s pushed to the front of the crowd, her elegant face a mask of surprise and barely concealed disapproval. Lucia Valentino. Emma recognized her from the photos. "Marco," his mother said slowly, her accent thickening with emotion. "You brought a guest. Mama, this is Emma, the woman I've been telling you about." Lucia's eyes swept over Emma, her simple cotton dress, her practical flats, her lack of designer labels or expensive jewelry. Emma watched the assessment happen in real time, saw the moment when she was found wanting, but she was a waitress who'd handled everything from drunk college kids to handsy Wall Street traders. She could handle one disapproving Italian mother. Emma extended her hand with a smile that didn't quite reach her nervous eyes. "Mrs. Valentino, it's lovely to meet you. Marco's told me so much about you. Thank you for having me this weekend." Lucia took her hand limply, as if afraid whatever Emma had might be contagious. "How unexpected. Marco didn't mention you were That I'm not Italian? Emma supplied helpfully, her smile never wavering even as her heart hammered. Yes, I know. My family is from Shanghai originally. We immigrated when I was 7, but I make a mean lasagna if that helps. Someone in the crowd laughed. A teenage girl pushing forward with a grin. I like her already, the girl said. Sophia, Marco's niece. Uncle Marco, you finally brought someone interesting. The tension broke slightly. Marco made introductions as the family slowly dispersed, though Emma could feel the weight of their stares and whispers following her. She'd known it would be like this, had prepared for it, but actually living it was different from imagining it. As Tony brought their bags inside, Marco leaned close to Emma's ear. You did great, he murmured. First test passed. How many more tests are there? Let's not count. It'll only make the weekend feel longer. A man in his early 30s approached, handsome, with an easier smile than Marco's, wearing a polo shirt and khakis. Antonio, the groom. So you're the mystery woman, he said, shaking Emma's hand warmly. I have to say, Marco, when Mama said you were bringing someone, I expected another uptight lawyer or socialite. This is much better. Thanks, Emma said uncertainly. He means you seem human, Marco translated. Apparently that's rare in our circles. As they headed inside, toward what Emma could only assume would be a very long, very complicated weekend, she caught Marco's eye. He gave her a small, reassuring nod. She was in. Now she just had to survive. The Valentino family estate swallowed them whole, and Emma Chen, waitress from Queens, stepped into a world she'd only ever seen in movies. Behind them, Lucia Valentino watched through narrowed eyes, already planning her interrogation. The weekend had only just begun. The guest room Marco led Emma to was larger than her entire apartment in Astoria. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked manicured gardens that seemed to stretch endlessly toward the ocean. The furniture was antique, not the kind you found at estate sales, but the kind that had been in families for generations. A 4-poster bed dominated the space, dressed in linens that probably had a thread count higher than Emma's monthly grocery budget. Emma set her small suitcase down, feeling acutely aware of how out of place it looked against the Persian rug. This is too much. Marco stood in the doorway, his jacket draped over one arm. It's just a room. Your bathroom is through that door. There are fresh towels, toiletries if you need them. My room is down the hall, 3rd door on the left. If you need anything or if anyone bothers you, come find me immediately. Where's your room in relation to mine? Close enough to be respectable, far enough to maintain appearances. My mother has very specific ideas about unmarried couples under her roof even at our age. He smiled slightly, one of the few traditional values she still enforces. Emma walked to the window, looking out at the estate grounds. In the fading light, she could see other guests arriving, expensive cars pulling up to the main house, well-dressed people air-kissing and greeting each other with the casual intimacy of old money and older connections. I don't belong here, she said quietly. No one belongs anywhere, Marco replied. We just pretend we do until everyone believes it, including ourselves. Before Emma could respond, a knock sounded at the open door. Sophia stood there, the teenage girl who'd defended Emma earlier. She was 17, according to Marco's briefing, with her father's Italian features and her mother's American directness. Uncle Marco, Nonna wants everyone downstairs in 30 minutes for pre-dinner drinks. She says it's non-negotiable. Sophia rolled her eyes at the last word, then focused on Emma. Can I come in? I promise I'm not here to interrogate you like everyone else will. Marco looked at Emma, who nodded. I'll leave you two to talk. Emma, remember? 30 minutes. Casual but nice. You'll be fine. After he left, Sophia threw herself into an armchair with the dramatic flair only teenagers could manage. So, you're dating Uncle Marco. How did that happen? And please tell me it's a real story because the official version he gave Nonna sounds completely fake. Emma laughed, despite her nerves. Why do you think it's fake? Because Uncle Marco hasn't brought anyone to a family event in 5 years. And when he does, it's someone completely unexpected? No offense, but you're not his type. What's his type? Boring. Professional. Acceptable. Sophia air-quoted the last word. Women who look good in photos and don't ask questions about what the family actually does. You seem different. Emma sat on the edge of the bed, studying this perceptive young woman. What does the family actually do? You really don't know? Sophia's eyebrows rose. Okay, that's actually kind of refreshing. Let's just say we have a lot of import-export businesses. She made air quotes again. And everyone pretends it's all legitimate while knowing it absolutely isn't. It's exhausting, honestly. All the secrets and the fake smiles and the people who are only nice to you because of your last name. That sounds lonely. It is. Sophia's tough exterior cracked slightly. That's why I like you already. You looked at Nona like she was just a rude stranger, not the queen of the family empire. No one ever does that. I'm a waitress, Emma said. I've dealt with rude strangers before. Your grandmother is just better dressed than most. Sophia burst out laughing. Oh my God. Can you please say that at dinner? I will pay you actual money. I'm already being paid to be here, Emma said before she could stop herself. The words hung in the air. Sophia's expression shifted, not judgmental, but curious. He's paying you? To be his date? Emma's heart sank. Sophia, please don't. Relax. I'm not going to tell anyone. Actually, that makes this even better. Uncle Marco finally did something interesting. She leaned forward. How much? That's really not. I'm not asking to be nosy. I'm asking because I want to know if he's treating you fairly. The men in this family tend to think they can buy anything. I want to make sure you're getting what you're worth. There was something fierce in Sophia's eyes, a protectiveness that surprised Emma. Enough, she said carefully. Enough that my sister can get the surgery she needs. Enough that I feel like I can breathe for the first time in months. Sophia nodded slowly. Good. And for what it's worth, I think you're good for him. I saw how he looked at you when we were outside. Like you're a person, not a prop. That's rare for Uncle Marco. He's been so closed off since his divorce. He was married, 5 years ago, to a woman named Isabella from another family. It was basically an arranged marriage, though no one calls it that. They were miserable. She wanted the status and the money he wanted. I don't know. Maybe he thought he could make it work. But she cheated on him with one of his associates, and the whole thing fell apart. Uncle Marco's been different since then. Colder, more careful. Emma absorbed this information, understanding Marco a little better. The walls he'd built, the arrangement he'd proposed, it all made more sense now. I should get ready, Emma said, glancing at the clock. 25 minutes until I face your family. You'll do great. Just remember, everyone's going to judge you, but their judgment says more about them than it does about you. Sophia stood up. Also, if Cousin Luca says anything creepy, knee him. Uncle Marco will probably thank you. After Sophia left, Emma opened her suitcase and stared at her limited options. She'd brought her best dress, a simple navy blue cocktail dress she'd bought on sale 3 years ago for a friend's wedding. It was clean, fitted reasonably well, and was the nicest thing she owned. It would have to be enough. The main salon of the Valentino estate was exactly what Emma had expected. Crystal chandeliers, oil paintings of stern-faced ancestors, furniture that belonged in museums. About 30 people mingled with champagne flutes, their conversations a mix of English and Italian, their clothes worth more than Emma's annual salary. Every head turned when she entered. Marco was at her side immediately, appearing from somewhere in the crowd. He wore dark slacks and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, somehow managing to look both casual and impeccably put together. You look beautiful, he said quietly, and Emma could hear the sincerity in his voice. I look like I'm wearing my best dress to a room full of people wearing their casual Friday clothes. You look authentic. There's a difference. He handed her a glass of champagne. Come on. Time to meet the family officially. The next hour was a blur of introductions. Aunts who smiled without warmth. Uncles who assessed her with calculating eyes. Cousins who whispered behind their hands. Marco stayed close, his hand occasionally resting on the small of her back. A gesture that felt protective rather than possessive. Aunt Teresa, the one Marco had mentioned as a potential ally, pulled Emma aside near the fireplace. She was in her 60s, elegant but with kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. Don't let them intimidate you, dear, Teresa said in a low voice. I married into this family 40 years ago. I was a school teacher from Brooklyn. They looked at me the same way they're looking at you now. How did you survive? By remembering that their approval doesn't define my worth, and by finding the few people in this family who are actually decent. Teresa squeezed Emma's hand. Marco is one of the good ones. Complicated, but good. If he brought you here, there's a reason. Don't let the vultures make you doubt it. Before Emma could respond, a man in his mid-30s approached. He had the Valentino dark hair and features, but there was something calculating in his expression that set Emma's nerves on edge. Luca, Marco's cousin. So you're the mystery woman, Luca said, his smile not reaching his eyes. Emma, was it? Marco's been very secretive about you. We've been keeping things private, Emma replied carefully. Private, right. Lucas sipped his scotch. What do you do, Emma? For work? I'm a waitress. The silence that followed was pointed. Luca's eyebrows rose. A waitress, how refreshing. And you met Marco how exactly? At a charity event. Emma recited the cover story they'd prepared. The Met Gala. I won tickets through a radio contest. The Met Gala. Luca's tone suggested he didn't believe a word. And Marco just happened to notice you in a room full of New York's elite. I happened to spill champagne on his shoes. Hard not to notice after that. It wasn't part of the rehearsed story, but it sounded plausible enough. Luca studied her for a long moment, and Emma had the distinct feeling she was being tested. Interesting, he said finally. Well, welcome to the family circus. I'm sure this weekend will be educational for you. After he walked away, Emma released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Marco appeared at her elbow. What did Luca want? To figure out if I'm real or not, I think. Did I pass? With him, it's hard to tell. He's suspicious of everyone. Marco's jaw tightened. Stay away from him if you can. He's been angling to take over more of the family business. Having me show up with someone unexpected probably annoys him. Why would that annoy him? Because it means I'm not predictable. Predictable people are easier to manipulate. A bell chimed. Old-fashioned and imperious. Lucia Valentino stood at the entrance to the dining room, her expression making it clear that tardiness would not be tolerated. Time for the rehearsal dinner, Marco murmured. Stay close. This is where it gets interesting. The dining room could have seated 50 people comfortably. Tonight, it held about 35, arranged at a long table set with china that probably predated the American Revolution. Emma found herself seated between Marco and Antonio, the groom, while Lucia presided from the head of the table like a queen holding court. The meal began with appetizers that Emma couldn't identify, delicate arrangements of seafood and vegetables that were more art than food. She watched the others to figure out which fork to use, hyper-aware of being observed. So, Emma, Lucia's voice cut through the table conversations. Tell us about your family. Where in China are they from? Shanghai, Emma replied. My parents immigrated to New York when I was 7. They wanted better opportunities for their children. And what do your parents do? My father passed away 6 years ago. He was a line cook. My mother is still in Shanghai now. She moved back to care for my grandmother. She works as a seamstress. The table had gone quiet. Emma could feel the weight of their judgment. This was so far outside their world that they didn't know how to process it. How tragic, Lucia said, though her tone suggested it was tragic in ways that had nothing to do with sympathy. And you have siblings? A younger sister, Amy. She's 19, studying pre-med at Queen's College. Queen's College, someone repeated down the table, the disdain barely hidden. It's a good school, Emma said evenly, and Amy's brilliant. She's going to be a doctor. How ambitious, Lucia said, and expensive. Medical school costs a fortune these days. Emma felt the trap being laid. They were trying to figure out if she was after Marco's money. We'll manage, we always have. Marco's hand found Emma's under the table, squeezing gently, a reminder that she wasn't alone. Antonio, bless him, changed the subject. Emma, have you been to the Hamptons before? No, this is my first time. It's beautiful, though not what I expected. What did you expect? Honestly? More beaches, fewer estates? I thought the Hamptons was a beach town, not this. She gestured at the opulent room. Several people laughed. Genuine laughter this time. Even Lucia's lips twitched slightly. The beaches are here, Antonio's fiancée, Maria, chimed in. She was a lovely woman in her late 20s with warm eyes. We'll have to show you tomorrow before the ceremony. The ocean is gorgeous this time of year. As the meal progressed through multiple courses, Emma found herself relaxing slightly. Not everyone was hostile. Maria was kind. Antonio was charming. Sophia kept catching her eye and making faces that nearly made Emma laugh. Even Salvatore, Marco's father, had given her an appraising look that seemed more curious than condemning. But Lucia wasn't done. Marco tells me you met at a charity gala, she said during the main course. Some kind of lamb that melted on the tongue. How did you find it? Those events can be overwhelming for people who aren't used to them. It was beautiful, Emma said carefully, though I spent most of the evening feeling underdressed and out of place. I can imagine. Lucia's smile was sharp. Our world can be quite exclusive. It takes a certain type of person to fit in. Good thing I'm not trying to fit in then, Emma replied before she could stop herself. I'm just trying to be myself. The table went silent. Marco tensed beside her. Emma realized she might have just made a critical mistake. Then Salvatore, who'd barely spoken all evening, chuckled. I like this one, Marco. She's got spine. The tension broke. Conversation resumed. Lucia looked like she'd bitten into something sour, but she didn't pursue the topic further. Under the table, Marco squeezed Emma's hand again. When she glanced at him, he was fighting a smile. After dinner, the party moved to a terrace overlooking the gardens. Night had fallen completely, and the estate was lit with soft lights that made everything look like a movie set. Emma stood at the railing, grateful for a moment alone, when Maria joined her. You're handling this remarkably well, Maria said, offering Emma a glass of wine. The first time I met the family, I cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. The night's not over yet, Emma joked weakly. Lucia is intense, but she's not as scary as she pretends to be. She just wants what's best for her sons. In her mind, that means women from the right families with the right connections. Maria paused. You're not what she expected, but that doesn't mean you're wrong for Marco. We've only been seeing each other for a few weeks, Emma said, sticking to the cover story. Maybe, but I've known Marco for 3 years. Since Antonio and I got serious, I've never seen him bring anyone to a family event. The fact that he brought you says something. Before Emma could respond, raised voices carried from inside. Both women turned to see Marco and Luca in what looked like a heated discussion near the bar. That's been building all night, Maria murmured. Luca's been making comments about you. Marco's been ignoring them. Looks like he's done ignoring. Emma couldn't hear the specific words, but the body language was clear. Marco's stance was defensive, protective. Luca's was aggressive, challenging. Other family members were starting to notice, conversations dying as attention shifted to the confrontation. Salvatore intervened, placing a hand on each man's shoulder. Whatever he said was quiet, but effective. Both men stepped back, though the tension remained. Marco found Emma on the terrace moments later, his expression carefully controlled, but his eyes stormy. Time to call it a night, he said quietly. I'll walk you to your room. They said their good nights, polite, formal, aware of watching eyes. As they climbed the grand staircase to the second floor, Emma finally asked, what was that about? Luca being Luca, questioning your motives, implying you're using me. The usual family politics. Marco's voice was tight with controlled anger. I told him to back off. You didn't have to defend me. Yes, I did. You're here because I asked you to be. That means you're under my protection. No one disrespects you while you're with me. They reached Emma's door. She turned to face him, seeing the stress etched in the lines around his eyes. Thank you, she said softly. For tonight. For everything. I know this is just an arrangement, but you've been kind. That matters. Marco's expression softened. It stopped being just an arrangement somewhere between the diner and here. I'm not sure when. But Emma, you should know. My family is complicated. Dangerous even. If you want out, now is the time. I'll pay you the full amount regardless, but if you stay, things might get harder. I'm not going anywhere, Emma said, surprised by her own certainty. I told you I'd get you through this weekend, and I will. Besides, your niece would never forgive me if I left her alone with Luca. He smiled then, a real smile that transformed his entire face. She does seem to have adopted you. Smart kid. They stood in the hallway for a moment longer, the air between them charged with something neither was quite ready to name. Good night, Emma. Good night, Marco. Emma closed the door and leaned against it, her heart racing. This was supposed to be simple, a transaction, money for a weekend of pretending. So why did it feel like it was becoming something else entirely? Saturday morning, 8:47 a.m. Emma woke to sunlight streaming through windows she'd forgotten to close and the sound of seagulls. For a disorienting moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back, the estate, the family, the dinner. Her phone showed 3 texts from Marco. Breakfast is at 9 on the back terrace. Casual. Come whenever you're ready. Sophia wants to show you the beach before the ceremony prep starts. Hope you slept okay. Yesterday was a lot. Today will be better. Emma smiled despite herself. She showered quickly, dressed in jeans and a simple white blouse, the most casual outfit she'd brought, and headed downstairs. The back terrace was less formal than the salon, with a long table set with fresh fruit, pastries, coffee, and what looked like every breakfast food imaginable. About a dozen people were scattered around, including Sophia, who waved Emma over enthusiastically. There you are. I thought you might sleep through breakfast after last night's drama. Sophia had a plate piled with pancakes. Did Uncle Marco tell you we're going to the beach? He mentioned it. Is that okay? I don't want to intrude on wedding preparations. The ceremony isn't until 4. We have time. Besides, Maria said you've never been to the Hamptons. Can't leave without seeing the ocean. They ate quickly. Then Sophia led Emma down a path through the gardens. Marco caught up with them halfway, wearing jeans and a faded t-shirt that made him look younger, more relaxed. Mind if I join you? He asked. It's your family's beach, Emma pointed out. Technically, it's my father's beach, but he won't mind. The path opened onto a private beach that took Emma's breath away. White sand, blue water stretching to the horizon, the sound of waves creating a rhythm that seemed to slow the world down. There were no crowds, no boardwalks, just pristine nature and peace. Sophia immediately kicked off her shoes and ran toward the water, leaving Emma and Marco standing at the edge of the sand. It's beautiful, Emma said quietly. I used to come here as a kid, Marco said, before everything got complicated, when I could just be a boy playing in the sand. He glanced at her. How are you holding up, really? I'm okay. Your family is exactly as intense as you warned me, but I've survived worse. Luke has been asking questions, about us, about you. I wanted you to know. What kind of questions? Where you're really from, how we really met, whether you know about the family business. Marco's expression was serious. He's suspicious by nature, but this feels different, more pointed. Should I be worried? Not yet, but be careful around him. And if he corners you alone, find me immediately. They walked along the waterline, shoes in hand, sand cool beneath their feet. Sophia was ahead of them, collecting shells and occasionally shrieking when waves came too close. Can I ask you something? Emma said. Sophia told me you were married before. Marco's expression clouded. She did she? I'm sorry if that's too personal, but if we're supposed to be dating, I should probably know these things. Your family will expect me to know. He was quiet for a moment, watching the waves. Her name was Isabella. It was 5 years ago. Our families arranged it, though we tried to pretend it was a love match. It lasted 18 months before she had an affair with one of my associates. The divorce was complicated, expensive, humiliating. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me that marrying for the right reasons, family approval, business connections, tradition, doesn't guarantee happiness. Sometimes it guarantees the opposite. He looked at her. That's why this arrangement with you feels honest. We both know what it is. No pretending it's something it's not. Except we are pretending. To your family. True. But at least we're honest with each other about the pretending. Emma laughed. That's the most complicated logic I've ever heard. Welcome to my world. They spent another hour on the beach before heading back for wedding preparations. Sophia chattered the whole way about college plans and her desperation to escape the family business. Emma found herself genuinely enjoying the young woman's company. As they approached the house, Emma noticed Luca standing on a balcony, watching them. Even from a distance, his expression was unreadable. He's watching us, Emma murmured to Marco. I know. Let him watch. We're not doing anything wrong. But as they entered the house, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something more complicated than a simple family wedding. Saturday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. The women had been separated from the men for preparation time, a Valentino family tradition according to Maria. Emma found herself in a suite with Maria, Sophia, Lucia, and several aunts and cousins, surrounded by makeup, hairstyling tools, and enough hairspray to damage the ozone layer. A stylist had been brought in for the bride and her party. When she'd finished with Maria, she'd turned to Emma. Would you like me to do your hair and makeup too? The woman asked kindly. Before Emma could respond, Lucia interjected. That won't be necessary. Emma can manage on her own. The dismissal was pointed. Emma felt her cheeks flush, but she nodded. Of course, I'll just freshen up. Sophia looked furious. Nona, that's rude. Sophia, hush. Lucia's tone brooked no argument. Emma excused herself to the bathroom, fighting tears of humiliation. This was exactly what she'd feared. Being treated as less than, as not good enough. She stared at her reflection in the ornate mirror, giving herself a stern mental pep talk. You're here to do a job. Get through today. Get your money. Help Amy. That's all that matters. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Emma? It's Teresa. Emma opened the door to find Marco's aunt holding a makeup bag and a kind smile. Lucia can be cruel, Teresa said quietly, slipping inside and closing the door. But that doesn't mean you have to suffer. Sit. Let me help. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. Teresa began laying out makeup. When I married into this family, Lucia did the same thing to me, made me feel small and unwelcome. It took years before I stopped letting her win. Don't make my mistake. Don't let her make you feel less than you are. As Teresa worked, applying makeup with skilled hands, they talked about family, about survival, about the particular challenge of being an outsider in a world that valued blood and tradition above all else. You really care about him, don't you? Teresa asked as she applied mascara to Emma's lashes. Marco. Emma hesitated. It's complicated. Love usually is. I don't know if it's love. We barely know each other. Sometimes knowing someone deeply happens faster than we expect. I knew my husband for 3 weeks before I married him. 40 years later, I still think it was the smartest decision I ever made. When Teresa finished, Emma looked in the mirror and barely recognized herself. The makeup was subtle, but transformative, highlighting her features without making her look like someone else. Thank you, Emma said, emotion thick in her voice. Thank me by not letting them break you. You're stronger than they think. Show them. Saturday evening, 4:15 p.m. The ceremony was held in the estate's gardens, under an arbor dripping with white roses and ivy. Chairs had been arranged in neat rows, occupied by 300 guests, who represented the intersection of high society, old money, and carefully concealed criminal enterprise. Emma sat in the family section, uncomfortably close to Lucia, with Marco beside her. He looked devastating in a black tuxedo, his hair styled back, his presence commanding even in a crowd of powerful people. When he'd first seen Emma in her navy dress, the same one from last night, accessorized with a simple necklace Teresa had loaned her, his expression had shifted. You look incredible, he'd murmured. Teresa helped. Remind me to thank her. Now, as the ceremony began and Antonio waited at the altar with barely contained joy, Emma felt Marco's hand find hers. It was such a simple gesture, but in a sea of strangers and hostile faces it anchored her. The ceremony was beautiful. Traditional Catholic vows mixed with personal touches that made it clear Antonio and Maria genuinely loved each other. When they kissed, the crowd erupted in applause. At least one Valentino gets a happy ending, Marco whispered to Emma. You could too, she whispered back. If you wanted it. He looked at her, his expression unreadable. Maybe. The reception was held in an enormous white tent that had been erected on the lawn. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Round tables were decorated with elaborate centerpieces, and a full orchestra played in the corner. It was excess on a scale Emma had only seen in movies. Their table included Sophia, Aunt Teresa, and mercifully, not Luca. Dinner was served. Multiple courses that blurred together in Emma's overwhelmed mind. But she noticed Marco barely touched his food, his attention constantly scanning the room. What are you looking for? She asked quietly. Trouble. It has a way of finding family gatherings. You think something's going to happen? I think Luca's been too quiet. That makes me nervous. As if summoned by his name, Luca appeared at their table, holding a champagne flute, and wearing an expression that Emma had learned to distrust. Marco. Emma. Enjoying the celebration? His tone was pleasant, but his eyes were calculating. It's lovely, Emma said carefully. Must be quite different from what you're used to. All this, he gestured at the opulent tent. Sophistication. Marco's hand tightened on his champagne glass. Luca, I'm just saying, it's a big adjustment. From serving food to being served. From Queens to the Hamptons. From whatever you were before to Marco's girlfriend. Luca smiled, but there was nothing friendly in it. It's almost like a fairy tale, Cinderella at the ball. Careful, Marco's voice was low and dangerous. You're about to cross a line. Am I? I'm just making conversation, getting to know our newest family member. Luca turned his full attention to Emma. Tell me, Emma, what do you think of our family business? Has Marco explained what we do? Luca, that's enough. Teresa interjected sharply. This is Antonio's wedding. Take your issues elsewhere. I don't have any issues, Aunt Teresa. I'm simply curious about this woman, who appeared out of nowhere and captured our Marco's attention so completely. Surely that's natural. Emma felt trapped. Every response felt like a potential landmine, but she dealt with difficult customers her entire working life. She knew how to handle aggression disguised as politeness. What I think, Emma said evenly, meeting Luca's eyes, is that every family has its complications. Yours are just more expensive than most. Beyond that, it's none of my business. I'm here to support Marco, not audit his corporate structure. Luca's eyes narrowed. Clever answer. Truthful answer. Now if you'll excuse us, I believe they're starting the toasts. She stood, and Marco quickly followed, his hand protective on her back as they moved toward the dance floor where Antonio and Maria were preparing for their first dance. I'm sorry about him, Marco said tightly. Don't apologize for other people's bad behavior. You're not responsible for your cousin being a jerk. Despite the tension, Marco smiled. You handled that well. Most people would have crumbled under Luca's interrogation. Most people haven't spent 8 years dealing with difficult customers at 2 a.m. Compared to drunk Wall Street traders, your cousin is amateur hour. The orchestra began playing a romantic ballad. Antonio and Maria took the floor, lost in each other, oblivious to the 300 people watching. It was sweet and genuine, and Emma felt an unexpected pang of longing. They look happy, she said softly. They are. Antonio found what I didn't. Someone who loves him for who he is, not what he can provide. You don't think anyone could love you for who you are? Marco looked at her, really looked at her, and Emma saw something vulnerable flash in his eyes. I think I've spent so long being what everyone needs me to be that I'm not sure who I actually am anymore. Before Emma could respond, the MC called for the family to join the couple on the dance floor. Marco offered his hand. Dance with me? I should warn you, I'm not very good. Neither am I. We'll figure it out together. They moved onto the floor with other couples. Marco's hand settling on her waist. Emma's on his shoulder. The orchestra played something slow and Italian, and they swayed rather than actually danced. This weekend has been surreal, Emma admitted quietly. I keep forgetting it's not real. What if it could be? Emma's heart skipped. What? What if we tried this? Actually tried it. Not as an arrangement, but as something real. Marco, we barely know each other. I know you're brave and kind. I know you stand up for yourself even when you're terrified. I know you make me laugh and make me feel human for the first time in years. Maybe that's enough to start with. Emma felt dizzy, and not from the dancing. This wasn't part of the plan. This wasn't supposed to happen. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything now, just think about it. After this weekend, maybe we could try something real. No contracts, no arrangements. Just two people seeing where things go. The song ended. The crowd applauded, and Emma stood on the dance floor of a Hamptons wedding, her entire understanding of the weekend shifting beneath her feet. Before she could process Marco's words, Sophia appeared at her elbow, looking worried. Emma, someone left this for you at your place setting. She held out an envelope. I thought you should know. Emma took it, her hands suddenly shaking. Inside was a single piece of paper with typed words. Leave tonight. You're in danger here. This is not a game. Get out while you can. Emma looked up, searching the crowd. Somewhere in this elegant celebration, someone was watching. Someone knew something, and they thought she was in enough danger to warn her. Marco read the note over her shoulder, his expression darkening. Come with me, he said urgently. Now. As he led her away from the reception, Emma glanced back at the celebration, at the beautiful people in their expensive clothes, dancing and drinking and pretending everything was perfect. She'd wanted to play Cinderella for a weekend, but she was starting to realize she might have walked into something far more dangerous than a fairy tale. Marco led Emma to a quiet study away from the reception, locking the door behind them. The threatening note trembled in her hand as he pulled out his phone, making a quick call. Vincent, I need security footage from the reception tent. Someone left a note at table 7. Find out who. He hung up and turned to Emma. Are you okay? Someone's threatening me at your brother's wedding. I'm definitely not okay. Emma sank into a leather chair. This was supposed to be simple. Show up, smile, collect my money. Now someone thinks I'm in danger? It could be Luca trying to scare you off. Or someone who genuinely thinks you're getting involved in something you shouldn't. Marco knelt beside her chair. I meant what I said earlier. If you want out, I'll have you home within the hour. No judgment. Emma looked at the note again, then at Marco's concerned face. Something had shifted between them this weekend. Something real beneath the arrangement. She wasn't ready to walk away from it yet. No, I'm staying. But I need to know what's really going on. Before Marco could answer, shouting erupted from outside. They rushed to the window overlooking the tent. Inside, Luca and another man were in a heated argument, other guests backing away nervously. That's Yanni Russo, Marco said grimly. Rival family. He shouldn't even be here. They hurried back to the reception. The argument had escalated with Antonio trying to mediate and Maria looking distraught. Marco strode forward with quiet authority. Johnny, you need to leave. Now. I was invited by Luca, Johnny shot back. We have business to discuss. Not at my brother's wedding, you don't. Marco's voice was ice. Security will escort you out. As Gianni was led away, Marco turned on Luca. The family gathered closer, sensing drama. What were you thinking? Marco demanded. I was thinking our family needs new alliances. You're too stuck in the old ways, Marco, too distracted. Luca's eyes flicked to Emma. Bringing outsiders into our business? Making decisions based on emotion instead of strategy. Careful, Marco warned. Why? Because you're in charge? You've been in charge for 5 years, and what's changed? Nothing. We need fresh leadership. Someone who puts family business first instead of playing house with waitresses. The insult hung in the air. Emma felt 300 pairs of eyes on her. She wanted to disappear, to run, to wake up from this nightmare. But she didn't. You know what? Emma stepped forward, surprising herself. You're right. I am a waitress. I work double shifts. I serve people like you who think money makes you better than everyone else. But at least I'm honest about who I am. Can you say the same? Luca's face reddened. You have no idea what you're talking about. I know enough. I know that Marco brought me here because he's tired of people using him. I know that you're challenging him publicly at his brother's wedding because you're too cowardly to do it privately. And I know that whatever game you're playing, I'm not interested in being your excuse. The tent was silent. Then Salvatore's voice cut through the tension. Luca, you're done here. Leave. Now. Papa, you heard me. You've disrespected your cousin, insulted his guest, and disrupted your nephew's wedding. Leave before I have you removed. Luca left, fury radiating from every step. The orchestra awkwardly resumed playing. Conversations restarted, though everyone was clearly discussing what had just happened. Marco took Emma's hand. That was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Probably both. Lucia appeared beside them, her expression unreadable. Marco, a word. Alone. Anything you say to me you can say in front of Emma. His mother's eyes narrowed, but she nodded. Very well. Luca has been planning to challenge your leadership for months. He's been building alliances, making promises. Tonight was his first public move. It won't be his last. I know, Mama. Do you also know that some in the family agree with him? That they think you've become soft? Lucia glanced at Emma. Whether this girl is the cause or not, you need to decide what matters more. Your position or your personal life. I shouldn't have to choose. But you do. That's the price of leadership. Lucia walked away, leaving them standing in the middle of the celebration that no longer felt celebratory. Emma felt the weight of what she'd stepped into crushing down. This wasn't just a weekend pretending to be someone's girlfriend. This was real family politics with real consequences. I should go, she whispered. I'm making things worse for you. No, you're making things clearer. Marco's grip on her hand tightened. For the first time in 5 years, I'm seeing who actually supports me and who's just waiting for me to fail. That's valuable information. The reception continued around them, but Emma barely noticed. She'd come here for money to save her sister. Somehow she'd stumbled into the middle of a power struggle that could change everything. As the night wore on, guests began leaving. Emma and Marco stood together, watching cars depart down the long driveway. Emma Chen, a voice said behind them. Salvatore stood there, hands in his pockets. Would you join me for coffee tomorrow morning before you leave, just the two of us? It wasn't a request. It was a summons. Of course, Mr. Valentino. After he left, Emma turned to Marco, fear evident in her eyes. What does he want? I honestly don't know. My father doesn't do anything without purpose. Marco touched her face gently. But whatever happens tomorrow, know this. Meeting you changed something for me. This weekend, this arrangement, whatever we want to call it, it matters. You matter. Emma's heart raced. This wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to develop feelings for a man whose world was so different from hers it might as well be another planet. But standing there in the fading light of the most chaotic, beautiful, terrifying weekend of her life, she knew it was too late. She'd already fallen. Emma found Salvatore waiting in the garden, sitting peacefully on a stone bench. Thank you for meeting me, he said, gesturing for her to sit. I want to tell you about a choice I made 50 years ago. I fell in love with an Irish girl from Brooklyn. My family forbade it. I chose duty over love, married Lucia instead. Do you regret it? Emma asked quietly. Every single day. His voice was firm. Marco is at the same crossroads. You make him happy. I saw it this weekend. But staying in his life means danger. Luca's challenge was just the beginning. Your family could become targets. Are you telling me to leave? I'm telling you the truth. If I could go back, I'd choose love. But this is your choice, Emma. Make it with your eyes open. Marco found Emma in his childhood bedroom an hour later. Your father warned me about the cost of staying, she said. Emma, let me finish. I came here for money, but something changed. I'm terrified because our worlds don't make sense together. Marco took her hands. Maybe they just have to work. I can't stop thinking about you. I don't want this to end. A knock interrupted them. Sophia appeared, looking serious. Uncle Marco, Luca's calling a meeting. They're making you choose, the family business or her. Marco's jaw clenched. Tell them I'll be there in 10 minutes. He turned to Emma. Whatever happens, I choose you. 30 minutes later, he returned. I told them the truth. My father supported me, said it was time someone chose happiness. The family accepted it, even my mother. She's practical enough to know forcing me to choose would only push me away. So what now? Emma asked. Now I ask if you want to try this, really try, knowing how complicated it will be. Emma thought about the weekend, the danger, the judgment, but also the genuine connection. I want to try, but I have conditions. I keep working at the diner. I won't change who I am. We go slow, and no more payments. If we're doing this, we're equals. Marco pulled her close. I can do that. Emma poured Marco's coffee at the diner, sliding into the booth across from him during her break. Sophia got into Colombia, he said, showing her the text. She wants to celebrate with us this weekend. Us? Emma smiled. We're an us now, aren't we? Teresa walked in, bundled against December snow. Your mother asked me to check on you two. She wanted to know if Emma's attending Christmas Eve dinner. That's basically her version of approval. Later, as Marco walked Emma to his car after her shift, snow falling softly, he said, I'm falling for you. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years. Emma kissed him in the falling snow. I'm falling for you too. They drove through Queens toward whatever came next. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be real. She'd come to the Hamptons for money to save her sister. She'd left with something far more valuable. The possibility of love, not a fairy tale, the real kind, the kind worth the risk.